welcome back to Warpaint Off-Road. I'm Dan, this is Warpaint. Obviously, I got the hood up because I'm gonna spend about 15 bucks, make Warpaint way safer to drive home after a day on the trails, as well as on the trails, and dress up my engine compartment at the same time. So stick around and check this out. So every JK or JKU suffers from this potential safety issue. There is something very crucial,
Mother of God,
under your vehicle, under that front bumper area, that's kind of out there and exposed. You can crash it into rocks and things like that. And if you do...
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Winds up affecting your brakes. When you have big tires, we all know it's real important to have brakes on these rigs from everything that we do off-road with them to on-road when a kid jumps out in front of your vehicle or that neighbor you hate.
Believe me, this man is a menace. He's always drinking, starting fights. Isn't that right?
So we want to make sure that we are safe. And this is about 15 bucks that you can spend at Motobilt. Comes with everything that you need. It's super simple. Let's dive on underneath the Jeep. Let's check it out. And there's also another reason why you might want to do this. So let's talk about it. So here we are on the ground on the driver's side of Warpaint here, right? There's my diff, there's our frame rail. And right on the inside of our frame rail, we have a canister down here called your vacuum pump. Now, that vacuum pump is only there to assist with panic stops and things on your brakes, which are vacuum operated. So if that's down there hanging out, I mean, you can see how knocked up my front bumper is here from hitting it on rocks. It's even bent in this little spot here. I'm not sure if you can tell with the shadows, but I've obviously knocked it around. I even have a big scratch right here, which is right near that vacuum pump. So it's a really good idea to actually relocate that vacuum pump, and it's super simple to do. The reason I say it would take maybe about an hour is because Motobilt's directions online say you have to remove your front bumper. I don't, but depending upon the front bumper you have on your vehicle, you may have to remove your front bumper in order to get to it. The other benefit to relocating that is if you have a bumper that took your winch and dropped it down between the frame rails so that it's a little bit more open in here to have some air flowing and cooling your rig, you're not gonna have to do this. It was already done by whoever installed that bumper. But if you wanna take a look, it's right there on the inside of that frame rail. It's just held in place with two bolts. There's one over here, there's one over here. They come down from the top, so you just gotta thread them out, no big deal. There's also two vacuum lines. There's this one that's connected up here, it just pulls off. And then there's one that's plugged in over on this side toward facing the passenger of the vehicle, but that's just got a clip connector on it, so you just pull it off. And lastly, there's two wires that are connected with a plug. I personally would start by removing both vacuum lines. After that, I would take the bolts out to remove the vacuum pump, making it easier to unplug it. There's our vacuum pump. Now, the next thing we have to do is look at the wiring, okay? We have to look at the orientation of the plug, and then take note that on this particular vehicle, and based on this orientation, we have the red wire coming in on one side and like a white wire coming in on the other side. Well, now we need to look at the plug under the rig, and we need to basically extend this wiring harness. Everything you need to extend it came in the kit for $15 from Motobilt. They send it to you with a new relocation bracket for under the hood, as well as a bag that has everything inside of it, but you still don't want to cross those wires. So we need the wire in the harness at the appropriate color here. These two, I don't know if you can see them there, they're green, one's black. So if I look at this plug, basically reinsert it, I can then get in here and tell that I have the red wire going to the green wire and the white wire going to the black. So we're gonna remember that, we're gonna disconnect it, and we're gonna cut both of those plugs off, leaving ourselves a couple inches of wiring on either side of that plug in case we ever wanna reuse it again, we can reattach it. Because my plug was super old and brittle, I'm gonna completely eliminate it. So I expose the wiring, cut it off, and then do the same thing to the other end of the harness under the Jeep. If you don't have them, I recommend picking up a set of these electrical pliers, but you can use them to do a bunch of things like separate the two wires that come kind of pre-sealed together in the kit from Motobilt. Then we're going to use the same pliers again to strip off the ends and expose the wire to make sure we can crimp on the heat shrink connectors. Next, you're going to take that heat shrink connector and slide the exposed wire into the end of it. Then use those same pliers to crimp on the connection. Then give those wires a little pull just to make sure that they're tight. Now, as you saw a second ago, this wire that came in the kit is actually kind of cool. The wire comes connected together, which makes it really nice to run up through. You're not chasing different wires coming apart. So you got to split that end like you saw me do. Well, the way you tell these two wires apart is one is just solid black. And the other one, although it looks black, if you get real close, you can see that it has a red line going up it. They call that a tracer. That red tracer is going to tell me when I see this wire sticking up in our engine compartment that red tracer goes to the red wire. Once you have those red heat shrink connectors connected to the wiring under the vehicle, you're going to use a lighter to just kind of heat up and melt that heat shrink connector so that it shrinks and seals itself around the wires, giving you a watertight connection. Then on the driver's side of the motor, you're going to want to locate this vacuum hose and trace it to find this factory split. Giving these a pull and a twist will eventually get them apart at that factory split and allow you to shorten that vacuum line so you can reinsert that plastic connector off the vacuum pump and then hook it up under the hood where we relocate it. Now take your relocation bracket, make sure you have that curved edge toward the bottom, and you put the vacuum pump into it using the hardware supplied in the kit the way it's facing here in this video. After you're done tightening down those nuts and bolts, you're ready to move on. Next, you're going to find these two fender bolts on the driver's side of the vehicle, kind of near the computer. They should both be a 10 millimeter. You're going to want to uninstall those because those will be the bolts that we use to install our relocation bracket. Take note that angle was important in relation to the pump so that it cleared the vehicle's computer. Now you're going to take that vacuum line we shortened before, and with that plastic plug pushed into the end of it, you're going to reconnect it onto the vacuum pump. Make sure that you take that green locking clip and align it correctly and snap it into place to secure the connection. Then take the remaining two heat shrink connectors that came in that plastic bag from Motobilt and crimp them onto the wires connected to the pump. Then after routing that extension wire safely away from all moving parts, you're going to connect it to the heat shrink connectors now on the pump, making sure that you don't cross the wires. In my case, the one with the red tracer connected to the red wire on the pump. Apply a little heat to make them weather tight, and you're about good to go. Yeah! All right, guys, so there you have it. We were able to dress up the engine compartment by painting that red. We were able to get our vacuum pump up and out of the way from all the rocks and everything else that might damage it out there on the trail, and make room for a future video, because this winch pretty soon is going to be going down between the frame rails to give me a little bit more airflow through my radiator, which your engine's going to thank you for in those hot temperatures pushing big tires. Anyway, guys, please click that like and subscribe button. Make sure you share this video, and thanks for the support. Get out there and build something.